tell you, child of God, that whenever you are experiencing situations where you have to fight the enemies of your life, you've got to be able to remind yourself that you have more power than what is coming against you. Is there anybody in here in the text that can be able to lift up their hands and say, I've been through some storms, but I'm bigger than what I'm going through right now. I know I'm in a recession. I know I might not have a job. People might leave me, might not have two nickels to rub together, but thanks be unto God that I am bigger than this. Yes, it's my ego. Yes, no, it's not my ego. It's too big. It's too wide. It won't fit. It's not my ego, but it's the God that's inside of me, and I have more power than what's coming against me. Look at somebody and say, I got more power. Notice here how Joseph, he controls his thinking. Can I tell you, child of God, you've got to learn how to get your mind right. You've got to control your thinking. Because when you control your cerebrum, and when you contain your cerebellum, and when you tackle your thalamus, then your gluteus maximus will follow. All I'm trying to tell you, child of God, is that when you get your mind right, then your butt will follow. You got to get your mind together. Get yourself in control. Tell yourself that I am bigger than this. I am the head and not the tail. I am the lender and not the borrower. And if he is with me, I am bigger than this. Look at somebody and say, get your mind right. He audits his authority. But secondly, he deserts his desire. He deserts his desire. Here it is. In Genesis chapter 9, verse 11. This woman who's coming on to him, she is married to a high official. Let me talk to the men here. She's married to a high official. I don't know about you, but if I was a high official, if I had money, my wife would be drop dead gorgeous. So I can only imagine how fine this woman looked. He owned all of the land, and he was able to select any woman that he wanted, and I can imagine she was all of that. I can imagine that her nickname was Campbell Soup because she was yes, I can imagine that because she was the wife of a high official. And notice that the fine woman throws herself at Joseph profusely. Any real man would be tempted by this case, but he refuses to yield to the restricted. You got to understand, my dear brothers and sisters, that we all have a desire for that which is restricted. Eve in the garden had access to all the trees, but couldn't keep her mind off of the one that she was not supposed to have. Samson was able to be with any woman he wanted, but he had to mess with that fine Philistine named Delilah. David could have had any woman he wanted, but he saw on fine Bathsheba on top of the building and had to have her. That's our problem. We concerned with that which is restricted. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Lion King. One of my favorite scenes in The Lion King is when King Mufasa, takes Simba, young Simba, on top of Pride Rock. Mufasa takes Simba and says, Simba, you see all of the land. Look as far as our eyes can see. Look at the trees and the hills. Look at the land and the livestock and the water. All of this will one day be yours. Young Simba, in his ignorance and his youthfulness, abandons all of that stuff and looks at the one spot called the elephant's graveyard. Come here, child of God. That's what we do time and time again. We focus on that which is restricted. God has told us to stay away from that, and we've got to control ourselves and look towards the end. Dad, let me tell you, don't you focus on anybody else's church. Don't you focus on anybody else's ministry. You just walk what God has called you to walk in, because when you go forward, God will give you everything that. The three noble truths Life is suffering. Desire is the cause of suffering. And in order to kill suffering, one must abandon desire. You've got to make up your mind that I am moving forward. I have to go in the right direction and not put myself in places, because although I'm in this predicament, I still have to move forward. Can I tell you, child of God, you have to move forward. You've got to desert your desire. Leave all of yourself behind and move forward. Pastor Cedric Campbell, let me tell you that you will get to a place where you have to leave everything behind. As you look back over your life, over 20 years of preaching, you can look back at how many people you had to leave by the wayside, how many tears you had to cry, how many times your heart was broken, how many times people stabbed you in the back, and you still have to move forward. Notice here in the text, my dear brothers and sisters, that Joseph, he tells her no. She grabs him by his coat, and when she grabs him by his coat, he runs away and leaves his identity behind. The coat was his authority. The coat was his identity. The coat symbolized who he was, but yet he left it behind. You've got to be careful when you're going through a situation and you make up your mind to go forward, because when you go forward, you will get in a position where you have to leave some things behind. And when you leave some things behind, you leave yourself in a state where people can see all of your hurt. People can see all of your pain. People can see all that you went through. People can see the holes in your life and the dirt on your back, and they can see all the mud that you've been through and how you've been ripped up side to side and how people let you down, but you still got to move forward. You cannot look at what everybody else is looking at, but you still got to move forward. I know they lied on me. I know they talked about me. I know they cast me in the mud. I know they said I stole. I know they said I lied, but I still got to move forward, because forward is where my anointing is. Forward is where my breakthrough is. Forward is where my greatness is. And I've got to move forward. Can I tell you, child of God, that you will never get into Pharaoh's office until you leave your coat with Potiphar's wife. I don't know who I'm talking to in here this morning, but you got to leave some things behind. Pick yourself up and dust yourself off and keep on moving. Don't you be concerned with what they say, but keep on moving. Don't you be worried about how they're going to talk about you, but keep on moving. Notice here, Dad, in the text, I got to leave you this morning, but notice here in the text that Joseph never went back and calmed himself down. Joseph never tried to defend himself. Joseph never told Potiphar that it was your no good wife, but Joseph made up in his mind that I got to move forward. Yes, they might say I lied, but I got to move forward. Is there anybody in this place that you made up in your mind that I got to move forward? Because if Jesus is with me, I can make it through the storm. I dare to high five your neighbor. I said high five your neighbor and say keep on